In 1994, a young woman named Karen was living alone in a small apartment in Portland, Oregon, a ground-floor unit in an old brick building that had once been a boarding house, and while it had charm, it also carried with it the uneasy creaks of age, thin walls, and wide, curtainless windows with only flimsy blinds for cover. And one night, as she studied late into the evening, she felt an eerie sensation of being watched, a heaviness that seemed to press down upon her as though unseen eyes were fixed on her from the dark. And though she tried to dismiss the feeling as nerves, when she finally stood up and turned off her desk lamp, she froze in absolute terror, for there, on the other side of the blinds, was the pale and expressionless face of a man, pressed so close to the glass that his features distorted, his wide, unblinking eyes staring straight into hers with an unsettling calm. And Karen stood paralyzed, her heart thundering in her chest as they locked eyes for what felt like forever, until she gathered the strength to scream and dial 911, at which point the man slowly, silently slipped away into the night without ever breaking his gaze. And though police came quickly, they found no trace of footprints, no sign of forced entry, nothing at all. But in the weeks that followed, other tenants began to whisper of the same sightings, and the landlord finally admitted it years earlier. A homeless man had been caught living in the basement and evicted, yet somehow it seemed he had never truly left, and though Karen eventually moved away, she could never erase the memory of that unblinking face pressed against her window, as though studying her soul, the image seared permanently into her mind. In 1978, truck driver Luis Ortega was hauling cargo through the lonely Arizona desert when in the dead of night, under a sliver of moonlight, he spotted a lone figure on the roadside. A young woman standing motionless in a faded dress and clutching a small purse, looking terribly out of place in the emptiness of the desert highway, and against his better judgment, he slowed down and offered her a ride, noting that she looked frightened, but spoke barely a word as she climbed into the cab, only whispering, "Just down the road, please." And so Ortega drove on in silence, glancing nervously at her stiff posture and strangely outdated clothes until after several miles, she finally whispered for him to stop, and though there was nothing around them but barren land and open sky, Ortega obliged, only to realize in horror that the passenger seat was suddenly empty, the girl gone without a sound, leaving behind only the lingering chill of her presence. And when Ortega later recounted the incident at a diner, another trucker quietly told him he was not the first, that for decades drivers had spoken of a ghostly young woman on that same stretch of road, said to be the spirit of someone killed in a car crash long ago, who would accept rides but never reach her destination. And Ortega swore he would never again take that road after dark, haunted forever by the vanishing hitchhiker. In 2003, a couple named Daniel and Maria rented a remote cabin deep in the Smoky Mountains, hoping for a week of peace and quiet among the trees. And for the first few days, it was perfect. The stillness of the forest, broken only by the sound of rustling leaves and the occasional call of a distant owl. But one night, Maria was woken by the distinct sound of footsteps on the porch, slow and deliberate, the boards groaning under each step. And though she first thought it might be an animal, Daniel's tense expression as he listened beside her confirmed otherwise. And grabbing a flashlight, he threw open the door, only to find the porch empty, the rocking chairs swaying softly in the night breeze, as though mocking them. And though they locked up tightly and tried to return to sleep, Maria awoke again around 3 a.m. to something far more disturbing, the sound of heavy, ragged breathing right outside their bedroom window, so close it fogged the glass. And when she screamed, Daniel sprang up and shone his light outside. But once again the noise ceased, and the woods returned to a chilling silence. And in the morning, they found footprints in the dirt surrounding the cabin, large and bare, despite the freezing temperature, circling the entire structure and stopping beneath the window where Maria had heard the breathing. And though the rental office staff tried to dismiss it by suggesting that sometimes locals wandered through the area. Neither Daniel nor Maria could explain why someone would roam barefoot in the frozen night, silently watching a sleeping couple, and they ended their vacation early, carrying with them the haunting thought that someone had been standing just beyond the walls for hours, breathing in the dark, listening, and waiting. And in all three of these encounters, Karen's watcher at the window, Ortega's vanishing hitchhiker, and Daniel and Maria's intruder in the woods. What makes them so chilling is not only the terror of the moment, but the lingering realization afterward that the world is filled with presences, both human and not, that move silently at the edges of our lives, sometimes choosing to reveal themselves in fleeting, horrifying moments, leaving behind questions with no answers and fears that time cannot erase. And perhaps the most unsettling thought of all is that such encounters may not be isolated, but ongoing, repeating again and again, with new witnesses, new victims, and new stories whispered into the night.